Welcome to Part of the Solution, because what the world really needed was another podcast, except for this one actually cuts through the noise. Hi, I'm Natalie, your coach, speaker, truth teller, and your favorite no BS friend. Around here, we're talking health, healing, habits, hormones, and how to finally grow a mindset that gets out of your own way. There's no filters, just real conversations that might actually change your life. Okay, and we are back in the studio with my dear friend, Lisa Kirby. She's back for episode 2. Lisa, welcome back. Thanks for being here, girl.
Thank you so much for having me, Natalie. This is awesome.
Yes, of course. So we're going to get right into it today. We are going to be doing some myth busting and answering questions and just going through the basic stages of perimenopause, menopause, hormones. Just if you're a female, tune in. If you are sweating through the sheets, if you are not feeling yourself today, if you're not sure who you are or what's going on, this is the episode for you. So, Lisa, why don't we just break down very quickly just what is perimenopause? What is menopause? What are hormones? What is it like to be a fucking female?
Yes, I love this conversation. We could talk about hormones forever. So, really, on the most basic level, hormones are chemical messengers in our body, and it's different processes, and we have a hormonal hierarchy of this hormone talks to that hormone to produce that hormone. But really, it's telling your body to create certain and stimulate certain physiological processes in the body. So we want them in balance, and there really is no good or bad. We want all of these hormones and chemical messengers being released in our body to be flowing in homeostasis and balanced.
What does homeostasis mean? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so just as one example, almost every hormone has an equal and opposite hormone. So estrogen, for example, it's kind of equal and opposite hormone is progesterone. So when estrogen is really high, we can experience things like heavy bleeding, cramping, all kinds of PMS symptoms. But when we have high estrogen followed by high progesterone throughout our monthly cycle, it's in balance, we're in homeostasis, and our period is actually pretty chill. So it's really what I've come to find in my own studies and working with clients is that really moving away, again, per usual, the green door life kind of way is moving away from this dichotomy of good or bad and kind of what you see online, little clips and buzzwords and sentences that kind of stick with you. This thing, you don't want cortisol. Cortisol is so bad for you, another hormone. Cortisol is neither good or bad. We want it in balance. We don't want too much and we don't want too little, or we'd never get out of bed. So it's really coming to this more educated place of we want them to be released in the right amounts at the right times.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why previous episode, we kind of suggested this slow rise in the morning and kind of a slow, gentle fall in the evening, just so that your cortisol is rising up at the right time and the right level. Because again, you don't want to go extreme either way.
Exactly. And so then kind of in zooming out even from there, so you want these hormones and chemical messengers talking to your organs and stimulating a cascade of biological processes in the body at the right time. You also have these times as a woman that is very, very different from a man, where we have kind of this first past puberty where our hormones are crazy, as we know, depending on when we first go through puberty. For some women, it could be as young as 9 years old. I didn't go through puberty till 16, 17. So everyone's different. And the key difference for women is that we have a second puberty, and it's called perimenopause.
Yes.
And that's the piece that you and I connected on, where we really want to bring clarity to this conversation, because it's great that it's being talked about, but once again, just like nutrition and exercise and all these things that are shared about so openly now online, it can be overwhelming to take in all this information from all these different influencers and doctors and health coaches online. And, here we are in our little monkey brains trying to sort it out and be like, what the heck is true? Because you hear, just little clips of things here and there, and your brain's trying to sort out like what's true, what the heck do I do? What's the best, actions to take? So that's really that clarity piece we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, I think a lot of us get stuck in that, and we definitely need to kind of water things down for people and kind of dumb it down. So one thing you said, and I just want to back up for a second. What is the definition of puberty? So is this when your child starts their period, or, when, like, if moms are listening, which I know they are, and, like my daughter is 8, she's not close. I mean, maybe, but when will I know as a parent when she is in puberty?
Yeah. So actually, for women, it's a little bit easier to identify because we actually get a period. For men, it's more of boys, when they hit puberty, it's more looking at the physical manifestation of puberty with like body hair and, changes in your female, male body parts. So it's a little bit easier for women. It's like we literally get a period. That's like the big, culminating point. And
Okay.
usually that is followed by, changes in breast tissue. And usually for women, it's like butt, hips, thigh area.
Yes.
For me, I don't know about you, but I was looking back at this picture of me at 16. I'm like, where did the breast tissue did not happen for me? Mine was like all ass, just
Yeah.
like my nickname in high school was Ghetto Boo. So it's different for everybody. I never got the upper body fat tissue. It was just
Oh my
all.
gosh. I think I'll title this episode as Ghetto Booty for sure. Let's just,
Oh my god, all my high school classmates, many of which were in our community, they'll remember my nickname was GB, Ghetto Buddy.
I was the opposite. I had, yes, I developed on the upper portion. I don't think I got hips until I had a baby. I feel like my body was like, all right, now it's time to widen. And that's when I really noticed like I have more of that hourglass figure because my hips got bigger.
So I'm so glad we're talking about this actually because I didn't get more breast tissue until my first child.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's so interesting. I wonder if there's a little,
Yeah.
or
Everybody's so different. And I think that's a good thing to talk about and clarify during this episode is that everybody is so different. Okay, so now that we've kind of covered the first puberty, let's talk about what you call this second puberty and kind of step into that like perimenopause and menopause talk.
yes. So we're kind of transitioning from puberty to our fertile years, really when that biological drive. I don't know if you got it, but I remember hitting like 27, which is when I met my husband, and just like that strong biological drive of like I would see a baby and just like cry. And it was like I was like in my head, I'm like, no, I do not want a child. But in my body, it was like my uterus was talking, like, it's time. Let's go.
Oh, no. I did not experience that. I experience that more now than
Really?
I swear that I really didn't want a kid and I love my daughter to death, but until I got pregnant, I was very much on the fence. I
Yeah.
never grew up wanting that, and then all of a sudden, it just hit, and I was like, "Ooh, I have to have a baby." But even now, I see other babies, and I'm like, "Oh, it's so cute," all of those things. I start lactating, and no, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Well, that actually happens to some women. So,
Yeah,
how old were you when you had your daughter?
I was 37, 36. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, 36.
Yeah.
So I
And
was a little bit older, but I was anti kids before that. There was no internal push. There was no like, hey, and then all of a sudden there kind of was.
yes. And then it's almost like after that, it kind of opens the window. Just something for women to be aware of if they have that almost biological feeling where you're not even guided by your brain, your logical brain anymore. It just feels like this
Yes.
almost like animalistic sensation. So really those years are your fertile years. Ideally we're having, happy, healthy menstrual cycles, which we could do a whole podcast just on that, because really you want to use your menstrual cycle, I think, as we talked about in the last episode, as like your fifth vital sign. So really looking to your period as like an indicator of how is your overall health for a female. So that kind of looking at your menstrual cycle during those fertile years is really going to be an indicator of how chill your perimenopause transition is going to be. So as you reach this point, and for some women, it can start as early as 35. And I think that's where we've gotten some interesting comments on Instagram, because we are very vocal about speaking up about perimenopause, that it's not this one and done thing. It's
Yeah.
actually the 5 to 10 years leading up to not having your period. So perimenopause can start as early as age 35, and it can be for 5 to 10 years. That's a decade.
Yeah. That's a
That's
long time.
Yes. And so we've gotten some, interesting comments of like, who are you to, you know, ladies able, like, you don't look like menopause models. And that's also what we want to talk about today, is that there is no look to it. I'm 42 and Shannon's almost 42, and like potentially we could be in perimenopause right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You actually won't know until you haven't had your period for a year and a day.
Yeah. Well, but you guys also coach much older women as well. So, yes, neither of you've gone through menopause, but I know you are the research and educated queen, like you're not going to speak on anything unless you're an expert in it. And same with Shannon. And so I think it's just sharing part of that journey and learning, or bringing up what you've learned and teaching others.
Exactly, because we have not only in our community but other coaches who are in late perimenopause or full menopause, in their 60s, 70s. We have a wide range of ages and amazing women in the community, and it's the best part is just that shared collective experience where that's what I've been craving and missing, is having this age range of women where we can support each other and be like, hey, here's what to look out for, here's what to expect. And
Yeah.
one of our missions at the Green Door Life is to not just kind of roll over and deal with it. It's like, what is in our power through education and behavior change and lifestyle habits? What is in our power to actually enjoy and embrace this transition? And like you and I were saying, like perimenopause can be this portal of power.
Yeah.
It's your in puberty. It's a total reset. It doesn't have to be a midlife crisis. It's actually, I think about it as like this pivotal point where your hormones are changing, your brain is adapting to different new levels of hormones, and it's almost like your bullshit meter is off the charts, where you are not going to put up with stuff that you put up with before because you don't have the capacity for it. And it's really this pivotal moment for you to choose, like, how do I want to live the next 40, 50 years of my life? Like, what do I
Yeah.
want that to look like?
Well, and I think people are so much more powerful when they make an informed decision. And that is one of the huge benefits through graduating Awaken Your Cycles, and just, being coached by you is I feel much more confident in the choices that I make and how I feel, and I give myself grace because I've been educated. So I almost feel like nobody can fuck with me now. Like, because I'm making informed decisions about my health or how I feel, or I am throughout the day noticing the changes, or throughout the week. And so I'm better able to check myself first off. And I think that the ripple effect on that is huge. And that's what I hope that women get from this episode today, is a little bit more confident with themselves, and to know exactly what their body's going through, so that they're not just like, oh, this is a part of life and they hate it. Like I said before, like I was once a period hater. When you met me, I was like, had a scheduled hysterectomy. like I was going to nip this in the bud. And then I got super educated on it and realized that there was so much more to the story and that I could take so much more power out of it. So sorry to hijack that part. I just really needed to say that, like, this was a huge energy shift for me. And I hope other women start thinking about it in that way.
Oh, hell yes, absolutely. And I'm so glad to have your perspective. And I was there too. Hated my period most of my life. I remember thinking when I was younger, I'm not going to give birth naturally. I'm just going to have C-sections. Like I remember and then I ended up doing the total opposite and basically having a home birth for both of my kids.
Yes.
So once I learned and got educated, and I was like, okay, actually learning about the wisdom and the spiritual factor of women's hormones. I think that's where I can really get on my pedestal, TED Talk moment is going down this path of, gosh, why was all this information? Like there must have been a point where this information was handed down to us from our mothers and our sisters and our aunties. And it's like, when did that change? And I really feel like it that power was removed from us, in the 1800s, 1900s, when Western medical system complex kind of took over in the US. And we went from like midwives and our mothers and grandmothers educating us to then this creepy guy in a white lab coat, being like, get up on the table and open your legs. And we're like, what? And we went along with it. And it's, I look back at all of that stuff kind of in horror, just like, God, that must have been a wild time, because now we're seeing this total opposite shift happening in women's health that is really this reclamation of our own kind of power and like a wild womanness that's
Yeah.
very embracing of these changes instead of apologizing or outsourcing, our
Yeah.
power away.
Yeah, I think that is part of taking your power back and kind of owning your own shit. Okay, so let's jump into, what if I've got a woman and she is starting menopause and she's worried about maybe taking HRTs or testosterone or a progesterone patch, or she's just not feeling herself or whatever, like, what advice would you give, or what education or resources would you give?
It's a great question. So really that first place you want to start before even considering hormone replacement therapy is nutrition. Nutrition, and then I would move into exercise, movement, and then stress management. There is so much you can heal and in your body when it comes to women's health just with nutrition, because when you start to balance your blood sugar and eat in a way that helps the female body feel safe and secure, it's a very different process than skipping meals all day and kind of being in this hyper stress state and under eating protein and not supporting your muscle mass or metabolic health. So starting with nutrition, that alone, like I can't tell you how many women I've worked with that thought they were in perimenopause, but they actually just had an imbalance of hormones. So there's no one test to be like, you're in perimenopause. Like we
Yeah.
can, and you'll see too, like most doctors are very hesitant to test because it depends on what time of the month, and because you have all these different hormones, playing out on this, on this level of testing at different times of your cycle. So if you're testing
Yeah.
a long time, then it's not going to give you an accurate reflection of what's going on. So
Time out. Is there a right time to test? Like, for instance, I have that at home kit. Like,
yes.
is there an ideal time to test your hormones to get a ballpark of, like, generally how you are?
Not really, unless you're testing like all month, which the kit that we both have is a solution to that. So that's really testing predominantly estrogen and progesterone all month long instead of just once here or there.
Oh, okay.
So kind of the flow that we're looking for in a normal women's healthy menstrual cycle who's not on birth control and not in late stages of perimenopause. You want your day one of your cycle, which is your period. You're pretty low in both estrogen and progesterone. You want estrogen to be rising slightly, peaking around ovulation, and then it kind of drops off a cliff and is a very interesting overnight kind of process.
Yeah.
And then that second wave, your luteal phase, so you kind of go from day one of your cycle, your follicular phase, ovulation, then estrogen completely drops, and then you want progesterone to take over. So one of the biggest common causes of PMS and perimenopause symptoms is low progesterone and too much estrogen. All you hear about online is, oh, estrogen, estrogen. You feel like crap because your estrogen is too low. I have yet to see that. The most issues I see is not enough progesterone and too much estrogen. That can cause like an estrogen dominance. And there's many, many reasons for that, including that we live in an estrogenic environment as modern humans. We're surrounded by estrogen mimicking molecules, so from toxins to other sources. And so if we are estrogen dominant, we're going to feel more of those kind of negative symptoms. So if you were to test, for example, in your luteal phase to find out like, how's my progesterone, you might want to do, you kind of like halfway through your luteal phase and test for progesterone. But even at that, most doctors are like, it's not going to be accurate. Why bother? Also in your luteal phase, as your progesterone goes, you want it to go pretty high, like significantly higher than your estrogen in the first phase. Your estrogen starts to come back. So if you notice kind of halfway through your luteal phase, you might start to get this little kick of energy back. That's estrogen coming back into play. And then both hormones drop about 3 days before your period when your husband's breathing makes you want to claw the wall. Very, very normal to feel a little depleted and agitated. And that's usually when I just sequester myself. And we were talking about this on one of our community calls. And it was not only, I was mind blown at how many women just opening up the conversation of like, hey, you have permission to cocoon and sequester yourself as needed and have some alone time before your period. That is okay. And then like, it's like mind blowing for women. And that, I would say that kind of feeling can be exacerbated in perimenopause, right? Because at perimenopause, what's happening is your estrogen over time, it will lower. But before it lowers, it's going super high up and down, higher than ever before, just like kind of crazy erratic. So most of the symptoms, and this is again why HRT, especially in early perimenopause, it sometimes makes women feel worse because your estrogen is first going high, low, high, low, high, low, like higher than ever before. And then it falls off a cliff as you move through perimenopause.
So that's the perimenopause stage. So that's your body kind of just, it's like the grand finale.
Exactly. And the worst part is as estrogen is doing that, your progesterone, which is your calming, anti-anxiety, like very chill antagonist hormone, is dropping completely. So estrogen's going crazy high, up, down, up, down. Progesterone, every cycle, it's less, 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 and less. So you have these extreme polarities getting more extreme in perimenopause. And then your brain has to adapt to those adjustments in your hormones. So
your whole family has to adapt.
Yes.
Everybody does, yourself included, So would it be the right option for people to consider taking progesterone, like I have a progesterone cream at this point?
Absolutely. The across the board, at least the women's health practitioners that I love their work, Dr. Laura Bryden, kind of top of mind first and foremost, has seen the best results just from starting with progesterone and also practicing very progesterone supportive activities that help your body still create its own progesterone. So either like a progesterone cream or progesterone like oral drops, that alone during your luteal phase even in your fertile years, if you're really suffering from PMS and having a lot of heavy periods, you can take it in your luteal phase, progesterone, not synthetic progestin. That actually has the opposite effect in the body. That's what's in birth control. But natural progesterone is the one that you want. That's the bioidentical version of what your body makes. And that alone can kind of just calm you into that transition.
So progesterone is in birth control. Progesterone is what we're looking for.
Yes.
And you talked about in the luteal phase. So should you ideally only take it for that period of time? So that whatever 10 days, 15, 12 days, whatever that is, that's got it. Okay.
You can start there. And then some women, as you hit menopause, which is the day after you have not had your period for a year. So you could you could have 364 days of not having your period and then get your period on 365. You're still in perimenopause. So it's a full year, according to whoever made up this rule. So
Yes.
it's a full year, it's the day after, and then you diagnose in arrears and you're like, okay, that's it, your body's done, you're not having periods anymore. Then some women like to do a very low dose combination of estrogen and progesterone together just to kind of, at a very consistent low level. And then that would be taken not in cycles, but just kind of indefinitely at a low level.
And is that HRT, hormone replacement therapy?
Exactly. And
Gotcha.
you can either do the synthetic version or the bioidentical. And like I was sharing with our community, that's the piece. Like, I don't know what that is going to be like, right? I'm not there yet. And I personally would have no problem, exploring that. And like, I just want to make it clear because I think some people are looking for, well, what's your stance on HRT? And I'm like, I'm going to make that decision for myself when I get there. I'm going to look
Yeah.
at all the pros and cons, and make that decision for myself as I get to that point.
So what could be, obviously I understand the pros already because it's just going to help you feel a little bit more balanced like yourself. What are the cons? Are there typical side effects to it
Well,
or things that people go through?
there is the major con that, from progesterone, there's a small subset. I'm so glad you brought this up. There's a small percentage of women who have an adverse reaction to progesterone. Part of that is because some women convert the precursor to progesterone, which is called pregnenolone. We don't have to get super into it, but sometimes that converts to cortisol instead of
Mm.
progesterone. So sometimes taking progesterone can kind of make you feel more anxious, more stressed out. If you're taking progesterone only and you feel more stressed, you could be that small percentage where it's not going to work for you. For most women, progesterone only is like a godsend.
It sounds wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. So progesterone has much less documented both in the scientific research and, anecdotally has less reported side effects. Estrogen is where we need to be careful. Estrogen is, by the World Health Organization, it's a cancer-causing agent. So it is a cell proliferator. We want to think of estrogen as like it's the most important hormone during our fertile years to help us fertility and just creating that balance in the body, but we don't want too much of it. So that's where the controversy comes in, is really with estrogen. And so again, I think there's a lot of women's health practitioners out there who are really pushing estrogen therapy and kind of bypassing the option of just at least starting with progesterone,
Yeah.
because a lot of the symptoms that women are feeling are not due to lack of estrogen at first. It's due to lack of progesterone and too much estrogen.
That seems pretty obvious to me.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't, yeah, that seems like a lot of women's symptoms.
Yes.
Not all, they're not like, oh, life's a breeze and everything feels great. And I just give myself grace all the time and just go with the flow. It seems the complete opposite. So it seems odd that they would go towards estrogen and not progesterone.
Exactly. And that's where if you don't have just a baseline, education around your menstrual cycle and these two master hormones, I mean, you don't need to go into luteinizing hormone and all these other ones. Even just understanding the basics of estrogen and progesterone is going to serve you while you're menstruating and well into perimenopause and beyond. And we're just not taught this. I always laugh. I'm like, what was sex education in public school in the 5th grade? All I learned was about STDs and condoms. And I really freaking wish, I mean, maybe that's just how I remember it, but obviously it wasn't, they didn't spend enough time like educating us about how your menstrual cycle works. Like that would have been,
No, and that would be huge, I think, in schools now in junior high to definitely go through that more. I think I learned about like pads and tampons in Girl Scouts. I was also raised by my dad, so I'm fairly certain he wasn't going to sit me down and be like, "All right, this is the story." I don't remember any of that. It was just like the science part of it, but I definitely think it could be something they could add to it as you get older to give yourself just again more education so you make a better choice. Okay, so let's do just a little bit of like rapid fire. Like if I had come to you or your daughter comes to you at 13, she started her period, ideally what would be the stages that you would go? And again, I know everybody is different, but would you put her on birth control? How would you educate her a little bit? And I don't we have to dumb it down because the audience, I'm already getting lost in some of your words and I have been educated by you. So,
yeah.
what are the one hitters you could just drop on people? What would be, the tagline for each little section?
If you're talking about hormonal birth control, like the pill does not regulate your hormones, it turns them off. You never want to turn off your hormones because your natural hormones that you produce from puberty to menopause is bone sparing. It prevents osteoporosis. The more progesterone you create in your lifetime, the more you're kind of like investing in your health when you're 80 and above so as to not, die from a hip replacement because you fell down. So it is, I know that sounds drastic, but we have not been told this about birth control. Birth control, synthetic hormonal birth control, depletes your body of your essential vitamins and minerals. It's directly linked to anxiety and depression, and it shuts off your own hormones. It cannot regulate or fix anything. And it's covering up, oftentimes we'll put young girls on it because they have endometriosis or heavy periods. And it's like, no, no, no. That is a sign that you need to clean something up in your diet, your womb trauma.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's emotional. If you've been violated or had a really traumatic sexual experience, or if you have a really dissociated relationship to your menstrual cycle. I remember part of my own healing, in my 20s was a stop. I stopped saying, I hate my cycle. I started to learn about it and actually be like, wait. Actually, this is amazing. Like every month my body is preparing to create a baby. Like that's kind of a big deal. Like we're the port
Yes.
for new human beings to come through. Like
Yeah, I think when you said that in our class, that was an aha moment for me where I was like, oh, okay. Like my body is actually doing something amazing. And so maybe I shouldn't talk so much shit to it.
yes.
I shouldn't do that. And it helped me shift my perspective. And, I don't know if I'm ever gonna say I love having my period. It's just a wonderful experience. But I definitely feel differently now, and I give myself grace because I see and know what my body's actually going through. So, what okay, so I have a 13-year-old daughter. She has horrific periods. Maybe she's sexually active. Maybe she's going to be in the next few years. What do I do? Like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Well, my parenting style is, radical, depending on what age they are, but radical education and
Mhm.
direct honesty. So I've taught my kids, again, at the appropriate age that in my opinion of like I've been teaching them about women's cycles and hormones. Like they understand what tampons are and, using words that are accurate terms for the male and female bodies, so that they understand kind of what's happening. So I would probably just, if I had a daughter, I would make it, my desire would be to make it this beautiful transition period, literally, when you're having your period. Like this is a rite of passage, which is how it used to be. Nothing shameful about it, right? So when we had our community call, it was mind-blowing to hear how many of us had such a horrible experience getting our first periods, and the
Yeah.
fighting and the shame around it and the embarrassment. And even us now being aware that the next generation of children going through that change, they're already more open-minded about it. And they're just like,
Yes.
I got my period kit, and it
Yeah.
seems like they're already more aware.
It's definitely changed. The conversations, the dialogue, all of that has definitely changed for sure. So I guess what I'm kind of hearing and understanding is that synthetic birth control, those hormones blanket what your body is naturally doing, and there's a lot of negative side effects. I mean, I know that there's blood clot, there's infertility, there's anxiety, depression. All of these are side effects of taking birth control. More erratic behavior or hormone dysfunction, which is really scary. So I
Yeah.
guess one of my questions is why do they suggest getting on birth control for perimenopause?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the balance. They either are suggesting birth control or HRT, usually
Mhm.
it's on the doctor. I think it's just part of our culture, at least in the US, of like, oh, you don't feel good, take this pill.
Yeah.
Like, and part of it is like the training. Most doctors aren't trained in nutrition and lifestyle habits and preventative care. Really great if you lose an arm or a finger and you need emergency care. Thank goodness we have that. But that's really where our mission and this next wave, these generations to come, I really see as reclaiming their own personal power and becoming your own health advocate. And so you really start to embody, like you are bringing back how much power you actually have over your body, including your menstrual health. So to me, it could be multifaceted from doctors. Why they're prescribing it is, lack of education, trying to help trying to help their patient feel better. I don't think anyone is necessarily, you know, evil or just like, I genuinely feel like doctors are probably trying to help their patients. But our approach is always, how can we do this through starting with the basic tenets of health, like nutrition, sunlight access, making sure that you have that kind of foundation set, movement, stress management, all of those things.
Yeah. Let's talk a tiny bit about testosterone in females, because I know we all think that's just a thing that males have, that guys have, and like but we also have it, and there are women taking testosterone. So can
Yeah.
we kind of chat about that? I know we've got to wrap it up soon, but it's one of the questions that I had.
Yeah, it's going to be bio individual. I'm a little bit more hesitant about testosterone synthetically. I mean, anytime you're taking exogenous hormones, so hormones that you're not producing yourself, it's a delicate dance. It's a balance because some hormones convert into other hormones. So testosterone can convert into estrogen.
Mm,
That's where it's kind of like sometimes when you're going through that process of experimenting, what's the right dose and the right amounts of all these hormones, you have to be very in tuned with your body and kind of like tracking your biofeedback. How does this affect my sleep, my libido, my energy? You have to be your own kind of personal scientist and observationist so that you can really get that feedback of how it's impacting your body. And only you are really going to know. Like your
yeah.
doctor's going to know as well. So testosterone, yes, it's essential for women, and you can get tested for that and kind of see how much you have. But it's one that I'm a little bit more cautious about. If I had to go in kind of terms of priorities, I would start with progesterone, look at estrogen more towards the end of perimenopause. Like when you're in late stage perimenopause and your periods are super far apart, that's when you can kind of look at estrogen therapy, and then maybe testosterone somewhere in there. But the good news is that just from lifting weights, you can create your own testosterone. Just by integrating more jump sequences and plyometrics, you can create your own testosterone. So that
What's a
becomes
jump sequence?
so anything from like gentle, like jumping off a short box to the floor or stool to the floor. It creates what's called osteoblasts to support muscle and bone growth. So, or even like hopping on one foot. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's like you're basically, you have to kick up the jump training as you hit perimenopause and older, because your body doesn't have the same hormone profile to produce it on its own.
So is that why this whole like craze of jumping on a trampoline is a thing now, or the vibrational plate thing? Like, is that part of this?
That is technically won't give you the same, because it's low impact on the trampoline and the plate. Like that's just for lymphatic drainage. But jump training, like on a hard surface, is different because it's actually creating resistance to help you stabilize and support bone health and growth.
We need
So
to add box jumping to our routine.
yes, yes. And it doesn't have to be a lot. And so even just like, I was looking at one of our workouts, we have like split lunge jumps or, jump squats in our finisher. Like
God,
that.
those are awful to do.
They're
They're
no,
so hard.
no. I know. And it's like, we just get it done. We just get it done. And so that's, that alone. I remember talking to one of my mom's friends, and was so lovely and was sharing about her experience with HRT, and she got her labs tested every month, and just getting on estrogen and progesterone, she started to feel like herself again. That's what you hear a lot.
Yes.
And had energy to train. And then her doctor was like, oh my God, you need to come off testosterone because your body's already producing it just because you're back to training.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like you
Yep.
said in the very beginning, that just goes to show you really what the proper nutrition and exercise can really help you do. So, I think if women are starting to think about this, or they maybe start with that, which is the hardest part, right? Because everybody would just much rather take a pill than actually
Yes.
do the hard work. But it's in fact the opposite. If you want to live like harmonious within your body, starting with food and nutrition and exercise. And from everything I know from working with you guys, it doesn't mean like this intense CrossFit style, weightlifting, bulk up, all of that. It could simply just be some small weightlifting, walking, and now jumping, box jumping.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so you're reminding me to bring up one more thing, which is that you're so spot on, because I feel like some women who haven't addressed these essential lifestyle habits, like strength training, balanced nutrition, getting your protein in, staying hydrated, eliminating alcohol, or at least cutting way back on it. I mean, we could do a whole podcast just on how horrible. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but the impact of alcohol on women during perimenopause
Yes.
is like, if they don't coax
Okay.
it. Like if you haven't
Yeah.
really reached that of feeling so horrible in your 40s from alcohol, you will.
That'll be episode 3. Don't worry. Everybody relax,
No.
take a deep breath.
We'll do that.
We will already schedule that episode because I can guarantee everybody listening to it was like, fuck that. Fuck, nope.
Yeah.
We're not giving up alcohol.
I
Yeah.
know, but you feel so much better. So it's almost like you reach this point in perimenopause. And, I really felt this literally right after I turned 40. I could just feel it. I was like, ooh, like I can feel I'm so in touch with my body. I can feel things changing.
Yeah.
Already had to change a few things. And really around stress management. But if you don't have those kind of foundational tenets in your life as a woman, strength training, protein, fiber, hydration, and, balanced nutrition, if those aren't in place, HRT is not going to solve your problems. And I can't tell you how many women have reached out to us like, I hit a wall in my 40s. I gained weight, especially around my midsection. That's usually from estrogen going crazy high. Like I
Mhm.
said, in the first half of perimenopause, it's actually higher than ever
Yeah.
as it kind of weans off. That can lead to, eventual insulin resistance over time, which can cause midsection weight gain. HRT does not equate to weight loss. Like, of course, there's other reasons for taking it for symptom management, but HRT alone, I think a lot of women think, oh, it'll help me lose the 10 pounds that I gained.
Yeah.
No,
No.
sometimes it makes it worse. So it's almost like if you don't address these foundational lifestyle changes that you need to be making in your 30s or at least by your 40s, it's just going to get harder to kind of get in that routine. Not impossible, but it's like do it while you have a little energy and it feels,
Yeah.
easier to get something
Well, and
new.
a lot of women say that, either whether it's like, oh, my second kid, I couldn't lose the weight or, just whatever it was, it's always harder. And they do get that like midsection weight gain. I know for myself, like I said, I had my daughter at 36 and it took me a year to lose 10 pounds. And I don't know, again, she was my first kid. So it's not like I had one in my 20s and was like, I lost it in 3 days versus this time it took a year and I had to work really fucking hard to lose that last 10 pounds. And it is really hard, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of women struggle with weight gain, not feeling themselves, and really just not understanding it. And for me, I really like education. I want to keep growing and learning. So I think this episode is perfect for somebody who's like, yeah, that's me. I fit that category. And I think the thing they don't want to hear, but that they need to, is that they need to really look at themselves and their relationship with food, with their relationship with exercise, and also their relationship with their cycle. And again, stop talking shit to yourself and stop taking shit from yourself. You know what I mean? And like,
Yes.
and be to the point where you want to educate yourself so that you can do something about it, because we really can. And I am proof of that. Like I said, I don't know, a while back when we did that workshop, I was like, I am a recovering period hater. I,
Yes.
you know,
And
I no longer hate it. And so I want people to get a little glimpse of that from this episode, that so that they can take that power and run with it.
and it's what you're touching on too, that it's such a pivotal time to surround yourself with women who are on the same page as you.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're not there yet, go make friends with the women who are strength training and they are taking care of their bodies, because one, it will be easier for you to adopt those habits, but also just surrounding yourself with women who are they're choosing a path for the next 40, 50 years of their life that is still going to be fulfilling and energizing and life-giving. Like, we are not just rolling over and just being like, oh, this is how it's going to be and you're going to feel like crap and you just have to deal with it and we just sweep it under the rug and we don't talk about it. Like, actually, you don't have to suffer. I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest message you and I both are feeling, is like, this is the time to like step into this power of deep, physical stewardship and self-care. Like, if it hasn't become a non-negotiable yet,
Yeah.
it needs to be.
Yes, everybody listening, make it a non-negotiable, because once you've done the hard work, every day is so much better. It's a lot easier. Like I said before, you give yourself more grace and you just understand yourself a little bit more, and you're more comfortable in your own skin. And it is a confidence boost. It is a way of self care, a huge one, in my opinion. So educate yourself, listen to this episode twice, listen to other episodes that we recorded. And then the third one that's coming up about alcohol, because we know that I love that topic, because what you can get out of it is huge, and it will change the game. This is a fucking game-changing conversation. It's a game changer for a lot of women, and I hope that they feel compelled to share this or reach out and educate themselves and start feeling better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. I just so appreciate you being here. Stick around for part 3.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.